Okay, so welcome to another video. In this video, I want to discuss the raging bushfires that have been going through Australia recently. If you haven't heard on the news, it's been hectic. So yeah, let's cover that. It's kind of a debatable topic in terms of what I want to talk about, but screw it. Let's do it. Let's roll that intro and get started. So if you haven't heard recently, in the news there have been raging bushfires going through the lands of Australia. And what I mean by the lands of Australia, I mean in pretty much every part of Australia. And before you jump down my throat about all of this, yes, it's currently fire season in Australia, but the problem here is that it's not summer yet. To give you a little bit of an idea of the type of fires that we're dealing with here, we've got a scale in which we determine the severity of the fires, okay? And right now, the severity is at catastrophic levels. And what I mean by that is that the level is at the highest end of the severity. It is quite dangerous. Currently, the death toll stands at roughly around 4 people, with more predicted to be added to the list if the fires continue to keep raging. We've got roughly over 1,600 firefighters, on active duty. On around roughly 130 fires across the 2 states of Australia, with more than half of those fires being uncontained or uncontrolled. Farmers are also at the end of the rope in terms of what the fire has done to the land. In fact, a lot of the crops and the fields that they rely on to produce their goods are now destroyed, with more than half of the cattle that they keep dead. Over 1,000 people have had life-changing events because of these fires, and what I mean by that is their homes completely destroyed, or the area around them destroyed, or family members killed in the blazes. But humans aren't the only ones suffering as a result of these fires. The Australian wildlife caught in the middle of all these blazes is having a huge effect on the population. What I mean by this, as an example, is koala populations currently have lost 350 koalas because of these blazes, with more than half the population in both states being admitted into the hospital because of burn or dehydration. Many wildlife, other than koalas, are also being admitted because of burns and dehydration into hospitals. And what happens is that these hospitals are now being inundated with a lot of this wildlife, and stating that because the land is now non-existent, or their habitats are non-existent, these burn victims, you could call them, probably won't be able to go back to their natural habitat for just under a year. I think the estimate is around 8 to 12 months. So yeah, all of that happened within about 2 weeks. So now you know what's going on. Australia is literally on fire. But what I want to do is get into the crux of it. Just dive right in as to why or how this is happening. And what I don't really want to get too far into is it's a very grey area in terms of climate, human influence, and other factors. It's very grey, very debatable area. So I don't want to delve too much into that, but what I want to do is talk about it. So that's what's going to happen. So there are multiple factors that can be involved as to why these fires have occurred. One of them being human-induced climate change and global warming. As of the 1970s, fire season has been occurring much frequently and earlier every year. In fact, frequencies of bushfires have increased by 40%. Let me make this very clear from the get-go. Climate change does not directly influence bushfires. But what they will do is they will contribute or enhance the frequency and intensity of the fires involved. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has stated that the increased amount of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere is a direct influence on the increasing temperature globally. What this means for Australia is that these increased temperatures and dryness in the air increases the influences or frequencies of bushfire events across the entirety of Australia. This is where things can get a little bit hazy. The dryness factor. Now, climate change or CO2 doesn't directly influence the dryness. There's not enough information to consistently say that climate change is directly influencing the dryness factor globally. But what the models do say is that the temperatures are increasing consistently globally. And what this does mean is that with the increasing temperatures comes increased evaporation and transpiration from the environment and from the leaves of shrubs, trees, bushes, you name it. This means that the soil, vegetation, and air has become drier than the previous years of the same amount of rainfall. And what that means is that this dry land can spark fires rather easily because there's not enough moisture to stop it. In Australia, 2019 marked the driest year on record. In fact, we had January being our hottest year on record, hottest month of the year on record, with July being our third hottest on record. Other factors that can influence why these fires may have occurred or why they are raging is wind. Increased wind or high wind velocities will spread fire very, very quickly. In fact, high wind velocities have been stated to send or spread a single fire 4 times faster than normal. And what this means is that this blaze can spread over several kilometers in several seconds, meaning you're going to get a lot of fire very quickly. Another thing is, if you live uphill, it's going to spread faster. Fire spreads faster uphill than it does on flat land, or than it does downhill. Thunderstorms. Now naturally, thunderstorms will form and cause fires when lightning hits the ground. But the cool thing, well it's cool scientifically, I guess. That's the nerdiest thing I've ever said. But the cool thing is that when bushfires form, they're going to have a lot of smoke. This smoke can sometimes get into the stratosphere, catch wind, and travel. Once this catches wind with the right temperature conditions, they can form thunderstorm cells. These thunderstorm cells will then form lightning, which can then set fire if hit the ground in other areas of the region. Meaning we can spread fires through that mode. Deliberately lit fires. This is a big one. Now, just over half of most bushfires in Australia are deliberately lit or accidentally lit. Now, when I say deliberately lit fires, there's two. You've got controlled burns, which, as the name suggests, are controlled, they're contained, they're monitored, they're planned. That's normal. Then you've got uncontrolled fires, which are lit by arsonists, I guess you could say, and for whatever reason, they just do it. I don't know why, they just do it. Now, bushfires aren't always bad news bears, okay? Bushfires are usually quite a necessary process in the environment or the natural order of life. They're important in the sense that they upkeep the environment by nourishment and by seed dispersal. Certain species in the environment have what is known as fire-activated seeds. In Australia, we've got the eucalyptus, as well as many others, but I'll use the eucalyptus as an example. We've got seeds that activate when met with high enough temperature because they're covered in a specific resin. Once this resin is melted from fire that meet the temperature criteria, the seeds disperse and plant themselves and grow new eucalyptus trees. We've also got resprouting. So some plants, shrubs, and trees have adapted to high temperatures by resprouting their seeds, or by resprouting themselves, I guess you could say. When burned, many of these trees will emerge with new branches or leaves underneath the bark. They'll also have underground root systems that will help resprout further down the track, from the nourishment caused by fires. For example, some Banksia species have what is known as swollen tubes or lignotubers underground. Once met with the wake of fires, these swollen tubes will then sprout new branches or leaves and cause them to grow. Now, soils. This is a bit of a tricky one because soils are a very complex environment chemically and physically. Now, in the wake of fires, many soils have been stated to increase in nourishment but also decrease in certain chemical compositions. It's a very complex relationship. But most soils will increase in potassium, calcium, and magnesium ions after a fire. However, they will also decrease in nitrogen and sulfur. But this isn't all soils. It's a very disjointed research study area. It's one that I'm not very familiar in, but it's one that I know of very slightly. The effects of fire, or in the wake of fire, some soils can become very nutrient rich, which will then allow a lot of the tree species or a lot of the shrubs or the plant life to grow a lot faster and become a richer environment for many organisms. That being said, some soils don't wager very well, and a lot of the ions or the chemical composition in the soil degrades. Very hazy. So, the fires across Australia are undoubtedly causing huge damages for the communities involved, as well as the environment and the organism populations caught in the wake of the flames. Furthermore, climate change and global warming have an undoubtable effect on what's causing these fires. They don't directly cause the fires, but they do help the consistency, the frequency, and the intensity of the fires. As I've stated before, we've got these fires occurring earlier every year. It's not summer currently. Usually it's fire season during that time period. We're kind of living in hell at the moment. The whole place is on fire. So that's that. Australia's on fire. We're not doing too well. Organism populations are dying. The land is constantly up in flames. You can check out like before and after images here. It's nuts. Hope you guys liked that video. If you did, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Remember to educate, don't eradicate. And I will see you guys for another video. Check out Cape Class. Also check out the links down below because some of them will be donation links that you should probably see. And I will see you guys for another video next week, next Wednesday. Hope you guys like that. See you later.